All right then. Welcome back to the Foxhole. Foxtrotting in a Foxhole. Season 10, Episode 5, number 293 overall. Your faithful host, Ken Harlan, coming to you from Eagles Nest 2, Studio A, during an atmospheric river hitting the Pacific Northwest as we're 1 week away from Christmas. 12, 13 days left in 2025, winding this year down. As always, thank the folks at purpleplanet.com, Mixler, the tunes. Thank the pods at Rode and Zoom for wonderful tools that we use in content creation. Potensic for their cool drones and all that good stuff. Want to be on the podcast or Aftershocks, the web series? Drop me a line, FTINFX at gmail.com, or call the hotline 541 525 0896. Love to hear from you. Check out SJ Gets Down. She just dropped another episode, so I need to post the links for the last two episodes. I haven't done that social media wise. Need to do her a favor. We're working on some content as she's moving towards season 2 of her platform. Got the scene coming up here. Got a big episode I think we're recording this weekend, so exciting stuff there. Another episode of Aftershocks tonight, perhaps, with Mr. Ford. Still finalizing that because he's done some cool things. So, anyway, a lot of cool things happening with FTINFX Media. Stay tuned. It's only going to get better in 2026. All right, let's get rolling with episode 293, shall we? Let's start out with some open face. Well, this is interesting. In a week of people really acting bad, if not downright evil, the asshat that plowed into the crowd of Liverpool celebrators earlier in the year. Remember that? He gets 21 years in the Great Bar Hilton. Well earned, I might say. Not sure, don't even care what possessed you to do that. I mean, come on, people. There are better ways of making a name for yourself. Oh, you folks, people gonna remember me. Especially when people are celebrating a magical moment, like with Red supporters, and you want to go try to take them out. Yeah. 21 years. Should have been 41 if you ask me. We never get tired of these beefs that athletes, celebrities have. It's why many people have podcasts. And you have all kinds of people that want to sit here, folks like myself or Marine Callahan, opinionate and give our salty takes. And I love that you can have someone like Archie Manning, obviously of the first family of football. Sorry, Sanders family. You know, the Mannings, they're probably, what the Kennedys are to football. And I love Archie, along with Peyton, who went to Ole Miss and did their time at Oxford. Archie Manning, the patriarch, not happy with Lane Kiffin. Archie, who's been pretty reserved for the most part, other than when Eli was drafted, and even then, still showed a modicum of class. Not too happy about Lane departing for Baton Rouge. And when you see Archie resulting to insults, you're like, got under your skin. Hey, that's the world we're living in now, folks. When people can always deal up. Like I said, Oxford, Gentile, great college town in the South. But hey, obviously the lights are brighter in Baton Rouge, and Archie Manning ain't having it. Okay. And Caleb Williams. A lot to say about him. Just watching a segment on First Things First because it's midday here on Thursday as we're doing this podcast. And Caleb being too cool for the Monday Night Football crew. They had requests for him to come up and talk, and he never showed. Now I know the young generation is gonna say, "Hey, he doing his thing. He ain't got time for those boomer fools," and maybe that's true. But you see, you gotta go all the way and deliver. Now, if you're Dion and pull some nonsense like this, you could say, "Look what you did on the field," and people will have to go, "Yeah, okay." But with Caleb, who hasn't done anything yet, and yes, it has been a very successful year with the Ben Johnson alert, Ben Johnson alert, all things fair. But you have not advanced to the point where you can blow off your media commitments, especially blowing off Troy, blowing off Mr. Buck, SVP, any of those folks. You ain't all that yet, and neither are the Bears. Speaking of, I thought this whole thing, the Bears going to Arlington Heights, was a done deal. But now the team press issues statement, I guess, yesterday. Basically, hey, Gary, Indiana, other parts of Northern Indiana, obviously suburban Chicago, it's on the table. Which makes you wonder what happened with Arlington Heights. Why is the process open all of a sudden when it seemed like for the last 4 or 5 years this was a done deal? Then some folks say, well, why don't you stay at Soldier? Because we want a new crib, damn it. Want that revenue. And many people feel that the renovations that Soldier Field went under, earlier this century took away a lot of the character of what made going to games there cool. I don't know. Never been there, so I can't say. What a week it was for Nakua. With his bro, him coming out and saying the referees are the worst, which is something we all know to be true. But if you're actually playing the game in a position, receiver, where you're one of the top receivers in the game, subject to pass interference calls, that might not be the thing you want to say. Right? I'm sure your quarterback's not happy. I'm sure your coach is not happy. I'm sure your owners are not happy. Your fans might be saying, yeah, bro, you tell the refs. And we all know, you listen to this podcast, the things I've been saying about officiating since 2020. He ain't lying. But you shouldn't put yourself in a position where, as people say, they are human and might keep that flag in the pocket the next time you get molested in a key possession in the fourth quarter. Especially since you're on a team that is in the conversation to win the whole damn thing. Yeah. Let's see here. We'll skip that one. Boy, they are crazy about Messi in India. You see how they unveiled a statue for the Inter Miami, Barcelona, Argentine national team great. One of the goats of the sport. People rioting like even more intense than when the Beatles came to America in 1964. Far worse, actually, because I don't ever recall seeing all kinds of widespread damage. But you go, Leo. You're having yourself a ball. And I think it is interesting that he's still contemplating what he's going to do as far as his World Cup plans are concerned. Yeah, okay, Leo. You go, Leo. You keep doing that. Then we've got Sophie possibly to the WWE. I guess she dropped a hint that could be in her future. And I'm thinking to myself, my goodness, how the hell did I never think of that? Talk about somebody perfect for WWE. Oh my goodness. I don't even know why you're on the fever. I think you should today, because I'll bet you'd make mad bank. You'd have the Queen Charlotte Flair shivering in her boots if you brought your blonde boo-boo up there. Oh my goodness. Yeah. Yeah, Sophie, you and your agent need to have a talk and see what kind of dollars they might be offering you. I think it is funny though at USA camp when they asked Caitlin about the experience caddying with Lexi and our girl Sophie. Oh, they were terrible caddies, but they were cute, and I think that's kind of what the world thought as well. More about them being cute as opposed to the being terrible caddies. I love it, love it, love it, love it. Oh my goodness. What else do we have here? Yeah. It's the holiday season, so we're taking it casual. So Elle Duncan, you see, she had her last episode on Sports Center the other day. Oh, tearful and still sassy to the end. She kind of had that look like, I really don't like being moved out of my chair for this. I'm like, hey, you wanted to go be the big wig at Netflix. Be careful what you wish, Miss Duncan. We wish you all the best. But we ain't gonna miss you. Unless, of course, they bring somebody even more annoying on the 2 o'clock and 3 o'clock Sports Center than you are. And I ain't lying about that. Speaking of former broadcasters, we see that Michelle Tafoya, yeah, that Michelle Tafoya. Haven't heard her name in a while now, have you? We're digging them all out of the closets. Michelle Beadle, Sage Still getting some flair these days. Heck, I even seen Jamie Sire on one of the cooking shows. And, Britt Henry, she's doing whatever she can to get an attention. Lowering that top every time the Commanders win on her X account. That isn't too often, by the way, this year. But it'll be interesting. Miss Tafoya is talking to handlers and looking at the viability of a U.S. Senate run. It's Minnesota. After all, they elected Jesse Labonte, so who knows? Maybe she could get enough traction in that state. All right. Mad props to longtime 49er and former Raider at one point announcer Greg Papa on his return to the booth as he's been battling a major fight with cancer in the big casino. But it's cool that he's returning to the booth for the last 2 games. Props in your continued fight to overcome that terrible disease. All right, folks, we're off and running with episode 293. When we return, we'll do the high view above the campuses of America. Welcome back to the Foxhole. Your faithful host, Ken Harlan, coming to you on a Thursday, a week before Christmas, on a very gray, wet day here in the Willamette Valley. Nonetheless, let's get the homies and the homettes together. Let's call Oregon Taxi, pile into one of their vans, giggling all the way as we get to the Eugene Airport. We boogie on through TSA, smiles on our faces, till we get to the tarmac where our shimmering Gulfstream G650 awaits us. For what? So we can get to our cruising altitude of 43,000 feet, where we're going to take the high view above the campuses of America. Well, this is going to be interesting since I do believe I'll be talking with Mr. Ford later. So a lot of the stuff that I wanted to probably talk about now will be better suited for the Aftershocks episode. So be sure to tune into that. Subscribe to our YouTube channel at FTINFX Media. Definitely could use some subscriptions out there, folks. Tell your friends to do it as well. Help a brother out. Okay. High above campus this week, what do we have? Well, this one kind of eluded me all week. And I don't know how, because this is the kind of stuff I look for. This whole thing with prediction markets. What is it? Kalshi, they have all these provocative propositions. And this was basically looking at coming up with wagers for where people would land in the transfer portal, all kinds of things that can be manipulated. Charlie Baker got out in front of it, school presidents, and apparently this firm is backed off. Moral of the story here. This is the kind of stupid shit that can occur when the adults don't get in the room and come up with some sensible rules to govern this. Of course, Kalshi's going to come up with something crazy like that if you can get away with it. Because we know a fool will part with his money quicker than you can say, Sydney Sweeney. When it comes to, that we can do all kinds of gambling on our phones at home. And just, the sound of it just is like, oh, wow. Who could have thought this was a good idea? But the fact that you can, and who knows what kind of fixing, manipulation. It's already bad enough we're questioning the integrity of all of this. And you want to throw shit like this into the equation? Yeah. I didn't even know this was going down. I just kind of doing my last pass as far as, okay, what am I going to put in this episode? And I'm like, oh shit, I got to go and look at this. And we'll probably come back to this next week once I have more info. But it appears that Kalshi has backed off from that idea after getting massive blowback from the NCAA and other entities. Okay. So we'll be talking a lot about Michigan later because Mr. Ford went to the big house. And so we're going to break that down in other things. One thing I can say about the Wolverines, boy, what a tumultuous month it has been in Ann Arbor. And so we find out this week that away from the whole Sharon Moore fiasco, and a fiasco it is, their AD was suspended. What for, you might ask? Giving an interview to a pro-alphabet mafia outlet, the rainbow colors. We're not taking any shots or anything. This is just tape. So basically, he spoke when the university right now, especially in wake of what's happened with Sharon Moore, has got a gag order. They don't want people saying jack about anything. And he gave an article which I think was kind of pro as far as letting trans athletes participate in sports, which obviously didn't go over well with some, and that's why he was told to cool his heels, which is once again. We're told to cool their heels. He or she, it didn't matter. Part of the scenery, right? As Donald Sutherland would say. Gender bending. Once again, people have their opinions. And I'm not here to be that guy. But what I am here to say is, if there's a gag order and you like being employed, you should probably STFU. And just play by the rules. I mean, now, if you're one of these folks that's okay with being a martyr or likes not being employed, then you do you. That's okay too. But if you ask me, I like being employed, especially when I've got an AD job at one of the top 10 schools in the country for that. Not rocket science, at least from the way I see it. Okay. The other side of midnight, as we like to say, across the way, Ohio, but not the Ohio State University, but Ohio University, where a good friend of mine went. They fired their coach. for a cause. And I didn't know until a few minutes ago what it was. They were kind of quiet about it. And apparently, homie likes to drink, was having an extramarital affair with an undergrad. Yeah. It happens all the time, right, Ken? Well, once again, Ohio ain't Michigan. We get that. But it's still probably a pretty good gig. And I live in a college town. Lots of young, wonderful co-eds. And, okay, if one of them wanted to go on a date with me, I don't know what the answer would be. But I ain't a coach. I ain't put my livelihood, I ain't doing any of that stuff, putting it in jeopardy. That's most of these guys. But before I go down that rabbit hole, my point of bringing this up is, where's the freaking outrage about this guy? And it's so much. Why are the race hustlers and race baiters and social justice weirdos who are coming up with nonsensical narratives about more? Where are they when this guy, who is obviously white, doing the same thing? And you're not asking, well, why does she still have her job? And what's going on with this? I'm just saying, people, keep the same energy for whatever coach who's sticking his tallywand where it shouldn't be, especially when you're supposed to be a role model and an example. And life should be good enough unless your partner is a true battle axe, as they used to say, to where maybe curb your desires. Once again, livelihood. Now, I think, the interesting thing when it comes to the race baiters and hustlers, they're going to say, see, he could probably get a job again. And you look at the likes of the Bobby Petrinos and things like that, sure. But I also said the other day on Aftershocks, how about Emi Adoko? He's working again. Plenty of people can bounce back from this. And more, that may be a whole different story because, we've already covered that. But with this case, keep the same energy, folks. Okay. Talked about Mendoza winning the Heisman Award on Aftershocks and Mr. Pavia's classless response. Whew, man. Wow. And, I still can't get over. You go out and ass out like that, then try to walk it back. Love how some people in the academy, like Mr. Ingram, are basically like saying, yeah, okay, and F you too. That's why you ain't holding the trophy, bitch. But once again, congratulations to Mr. Mendoza, a class act, so deserving of the award. Best of luck in the CFP this weekend, or in the weeks to come. So we know that Arch Manning, I was talking about the Manning family earlier. Archie also announced that he will be returning to Austin for the 2026 season. Gee, like that was a surprise to anyone. The idea, even had he balled out this year, that he'd probably need to come back for another year in Austin. Why not? Especially given the kind of lettuce that guy is making. I know he's got one of the top 10 probably NIL deals, so why wouldn't he stay in Austin for another year, get some reps in? Good for him. Good for college football, too. Yeah, I am a little bit miffed. I talked about this on Aftershocks 20 the other day as well. The whole carousel with these quarterbacks and why I think this system completely sucks now. I mean, just speaking of Mr. Mendoza, and I brought this up the other day about his adventure in Cal, and now he's here. And, thinking about, what's his face? Aiden Childs, who's up the road in Corvallis 5 minutes ago, goes to East Lansing with Jonathan Smith. Jonathan Smith gets canned, and now he's back on the portal. And I'm just sitting here thinking to myself, how is this good? Like I said the other day, you really need to get back to a point of making people sit out, make it a little bit punitive. You can do that without violating antitrust laws or restraint trade. Or not. Okay. I gotta say, this whole thing with USC and Lincoln Riley, it just makes my head explode. But I think they're number one recruiting class. I get that. SC gonna SC. Southern California gonna be Southern California. Crap, that's like 87, 88 degrees right now down there in freaking December. I get that part of it. But the product of the field is, to me, what we should expect from Southern California Trojans. Very substandard. This is not that much better than what they were doing with Clay Helton. It's not. Especially when you're freaking SC. And I just sit there and wonder, wow, how does this Lincoln Riley still get the shine and the glow and have all the talking heads still speak favorably of him when this has been, to me, a colossal disappointment? Yes, he buys a little credibility points by having this great recruiting class, but I'm thinking when you are USC, especially the way LA is popping from an entertainment perspective right now, it's not that much of a reach as long as you got some reputation of a coach. But I would think of all these recruits looking at the product, unless you think, yo, man, we going to be the ones that bring the pride back to Troy and make Keyshawn proud. Yeah. Okay. Hey, enjoy that Army-Navy game in Baltimore. Definitely dug it. Like to see the midshipmen. Seeing the midshipmen. I don't have a preference. I'm an Air Force guy. But props to the midshipmen winning a hard-fought battle. Props to the Washington Huskies who entered the tournament, not even ranked, but win the men's soccer championship. Flowers go around there. That is also interesting to see Doug Gottlieb. Yeah, that Doug Gottlieb, who that commentator, that sometimes basketball coach at Wisconsin, Green Bay. Well, he's going to abandon his radio show for now and focus on coaching, he says. Well, yeah, you sucked last year, you suck right now. People are thinking, dude, you need to be out there hustling your ass for those NIL dollars and improving our product instead of sitting there with your double life as a radio personality. Good for him for making that choice. Lastly, I spoke in the last segment about Michelle Tafoya possibly running for Senate in Minnesota. I love how Mr. Feinbaum, on the other hand, says, well, I was thinking about running for the Senate, then I realized my past comments I made about things like BLM, masking, and other restrictions during the pandemic might come back to hurt me. So instead of me running for office, you're still going to have to deal with my salty takes on ESPN. There you go, folks. That's the view high above campus. We'll get the plane back on the ground, get back to the studio, and come back with something you should probably know when we return. All right, welcome back to the Foxhole. Your faithful host, Ken Harlan here. Ice cold chilling on a Thursday afternoon. Watching a little first things first. Anticipation of some Thursday night football. Big NFC West matchup. College football playoff starts tomorrow. NFL this weekend. Yeah, it's crazy times. Anyhow, let's move into one of our favorite segments of the Foxtrotting and a Foxhole podcast. something you should probably know, or things that may have occurred, happened this week that you might want to know, possibly care about. Yeah. Well, unfortunately, and this is something we're just unpacking. This just happened right when I guess, well, I just found out about it right when I started doing this podcast, and I still don't have a lot of details yet. Since I'm going through here, bear with me a second. Let me see if there's anything else here. But so a jet crashed, and then if you follow NASCAR, which I do, his corner man friend of the show does, Greg Biffle. He was actually up from Vancouver, Washington, up the road on the other side of Portland. It was in a crash. I guess his wife and some other people, apparently perished today. Biffle was a popular driver on the circuit. But I don't know if that's been confirmed or not yet. Some people have said that it is true or whatever the case may be, but nonetheless, terrible thing happened as far as that goes. Our thoughts and prayers with those families involved as far as this goes, especially this close to Christmas and the holidays and whatnot. Yeah. Oh, wow. I'll have to come back and check. There's all kinds of things that are going out. Okay. Anyway, let me get back to, I just saw some more news. But speaking of NASCAR, I talked about the settlement, based on ESPN, who, because they worship Michael Jordan so much, I couldn't trust their opinion on what the settlement meant because they were talking about it. This is the biggest victory since the Supreme Court ruled against the Topeka Board of Education that allowed discrimination, that put an end to discrimination in schools the way they acted in terms of its victory for Jordan front row sports. And Cornerman, I know that was a ramble. Cornerman basically broke it down to me this way: that there'll be some changes, but the end of NASCAR as we know it, nope. Did Jordan and front row sports get what they wanted? A little more autonomy? Yes. But in the end, it's still the Francis show. And for the most part, what we know about NASCAR will remain what we know about NASCAR. As I may have the quarterback, I trust his opinion more than anybody else at this point on as far as that goes. And he went into far more detail, and he's going to be on here within a month, I would imagine, before Daytona. We'll really get into this. But I just I asked him a question, just said, "Hey, dude, just break this down for me. What's really going on?" He said, "At the end of the day, right, a whole lot of smoke, but at the end, just a small campfire in terms of its impact on NASCAR in general." Yeah. Terrence Crawford, 42-0, announces his retirement at 36. Wow. So much to unpack with this one. But when it comes to anybody in boxing or mixed martial arts, the first question we're always going to ask when somebody says, "I'm retiring," do we believe them? Most of the time, no. In this particular case, I take a pause. Just given this cat has always been his own dude. And it would not be surprising if he said, "FYMF. I got my money. I got my life. I'm chilling. I don't need to go prostitute myself out like Money Mayweather, who already has enough money for 10 continents." He may not return. I do believe there is enough money out there at some point to lure him back in the ring. We know our friends over there with those funds that have, I should say, that have unlimited funds. Let me phrase that better. Can come up with an offer for a fight in Abu Dhabi Qatar, Saudi, they could say, well, for that kind of money, I might get back in the ring. But I wouldn't be surprised at the end if he stays away. If so, one of the all-time great champions at 42-0, and we'll have to really look into his legacy down the road here. But let's hold off on that because I want to see 6 to 8 months from now, especially if somebody comes up with an offer he can't refuse. Okay, the Paul Anthony fight is finally upon us. What do we do with this? We're not supposed to care, but we kind of care. And if Paul wins, does that mean we got to take him seriously? If Joshua wins, well, is that the end of Paul? And we can go back to questioning whether these fights were scripted. A lot to unpack here. So this ends up actually being a fight we might give a care about. All right. Can't wait to talk about that next week. UFC sends ESPN a parting video. Oh, how sweet. ESPN getting a lot of parting shots this week. L. Duncan and the UFC in the same week. Gee, I wonder which one they're going to miss more. Oh. I think you're going to miss UFC. But hey, New Horizons, it's Paramount time. Let's see if they can't get this product back to a place where it's relevant. Fair to say. Okay. FIFA. Yeah, I know this isn't the beautiful game of life, but this is in the bigger picture. Hearing the Scowls, they slashed some ticket prices for next year's World Cup because people are pretty pissed. I mean, after all, you need to come from royalty to afford some of these ticket prices. So what's the FIFA solution? Well, we're going to offer tickets to federations who can determine who are the loyal fans who deserve a $60 ticket to the final as opposed to $3,000. Bully for you. We know that will be fair, but at least it's something. Fair to say. Okay. Winter sports, the Winter Olympics coming up a lot sooner than you think. And of course, our girl, Michaela Shiprin, once again, snaring another win. Good grief. I don't know, what is that? Overall, something like 150 or something like that? Or I forget what the number is. But she's a rock star. Which also funny, Lindsey Vonn, who cranky about Michaela getting all the love, making her come back. Her recent form suggests she could be in play for a medal at 41 last week in 2 races. I mean, she got a first in Germany in the downhill and a second in Switzerland. So keep an eye out on Miss Lindsey Vonn just going, don't you be giving Michaela all the love. All right. Speaking of soccer, how about our girl Lady Lowe, Rebecca Lowe, getting the nod as being the primary host for the Winter Games. She's come a long ways from the days of NBC Gold being the cool British chick. Hey, we want to watch it for Lady Lowe. Good for her. Speaking of the Winter Games, how about our man Snoop Dogg? Still cashing in on that fame that should have ran out years ago. But he's going to be an honorary coach for the Winter Games. Whatever that means, but the whole deal he has going on with NBC Universal, you have to say it is working for him. Man, that guy is extending his aura long beyond what I thought was even possible. Good for you, Mr. Brodus. Then you've got Cameron Menzies. Who is Cameron Menzies, you might ask? He was a competitor at the Professional Dart Championships that were held in London last week. And you got to see the clip of him obviously not making an example for the youth. I didn't know they had that kind of emotion in darts. I mean, he basically just knocked everything over and just said, oh, F this BS. Pull the Diego Pivaya, but a little bit more animated. You can't make this stuff up. Remember I was making that comment last week, I think it was, about Michael Johnson, the sprinter, and how his Grand Slam circuit went bankrupt, but he vows to continue somehow. Well, you better figure out a way. Apparently, some high-profile athletes are owed some serious cash, including everyone's favorite girl, Sid the Kid, Sydney McLaughlin-Leverone. I'm like, you owe Sid the Kid big cash. You need to pay up, bro. I mean, because this thing was like maybe 4 or 5 races they had to participate, obviously make promotional appearances, but apparently nobody got paid. All right, folks. When we return on the other side, we will talk some NBA beat. See you momentarily. All right, welcome back to the Foxhole. Faithful host Kid Harlan here. Cold chillin'. Still giggling about Sophie Cunningham contemplating a WWE career. Yeah, we're all for that. Okay, that's a great segue to talk some NBA here. We'll keep this a little bit brief because we're going to have Mr. Ford, I think, Aftershocks, do a little bit of talking about the NBA there as well. So we do our best not to double things up as humanly possible. Sometimes you can't help it. Things overlap and whatnot. Okay. So, Mr. Silver has finally come out and given us a date as far as expansion goes. He says it should come sometime next year. I don't know if I said that last week or not, but I'm reiterating it here. Seattle and Las Vegas still are obviously the front runners. I mean, somehow to atone for the wrong that was done to that wonderful basketball city when Oklahoma City departed. Las Vegas, it's interesting because there is talk about the Cup not being there next year, which makes me wonder, have you soured on Sin City as a destination? And could it be that Silver says, I like where things are right now? Maybe we don't expand. I don't think the TV partners and the thirsty fan bases will be okay with that. One thing is for sure, Mr. Silver is taking his time when it comes to the subject of NBA expansion. Yeah. I thought it was interesting hearing Penny Hardaway's comments this week. Yeah, that Penny Hardaway. Anthony says that the game is not fun to watch anymore. Now, we're not going as far as disparaging today's athletes, because he does say that you have to acknowledge that part of it. He says that the game isn't fun because the lack of fundamentals. Nobody does layups anymore. Nobody plays inside. I thought it was interesting. I was just watching a clip of KD, who he's going back to Minnesota as an ambassador, and he's going to have his jersey retired, and everything seems to be cool there with the Timberwolves again, and that's a good thing. But they were showing a clip, and Chris Broussard was talking to Greg Jennings on First Things First. He was like, hey, why do you think the difference between KD played with the Timberwolves and now is he wanted to see if Greg Jennings was on the same page with him. Obviously, Greg Jennings was, well, lack of HD, and Chris Broussard was trying to say the lack of the interior game and people playing close to the rim because everybody jacking up threes, obviously, and whatnot. You know, Penny coaches in college, where I guess there's some amount of teaching still going on there at that level. Although with NIL, I wonder. Yeah. I don't know, Penny. I just got done watching the Emirates Cup, and I thought that was fun. Right? The Knicks, give the Knicks their flowers. Their first major accomplishment, we'll just say. I mean, obviously, well, I shouldn't say that. They've been in the finals. They won the East, so Eastern Conference. But it's been a hot minute. And that was a heck of a performance. Taking down a Spurs team, which impressed the hell out of me, putting out Oklahoma City's Fire. I was talking about Aftershocks the other day. You know, they'd won, 16 in a row. We were making jokes about, hey, can they make a run at the 71-72 Lakers untouchable 33-game consecutive win streak? Obviously, that didn't happen. And here are the Knicks. It was a very good effort, a team effort, mind you, outscoring the young Spurs and went beyond a 35-19 in the fourth quarter. To take it. A good moment for the Knicks. Simple as that. Well, let's talk about the banners and all that kind of stuff. Yeah, whatever, man. You know, I got something to say about that a little bit later. It's fun. And I think for that fan base, Celebrity Row and all the hardcore Knicks backers, it's good. It's a loyal bunch. Has been all along. You know, the game in many ways has passed them by several times over since the heydays of the 70s or the great runs with Pat Riley in the 90s with Patrick Ewing and John Starks and whatnot. So, yeah, it's a fun bunch to watch. They're scrappy, athletic. The Cup itself, great show. Very good show. Let me talk a little bit more about that with Mr. Ford later and stuff. So on Aftershocks, be sure to tune in. Fucking Brunson, guy just totally balled out. Totally deserved, getting his flowers. But there was quite a few people. Ananabi, yeah, Cat. This is fun to watch. Okay, what else did we have going on this week? So what was it, Sunday night? You had the Lakers and Suns. Lakers beat the Suns in a very close affair. I think what it ended up being 118-116. But of course, the news always, Dylan Brooks being Dylan Brooks. Getting into it with LeBron again, being an asshole, and then having the timidity to say, oh, well, I gotta learn from that. Dude, you've been doing this nonsense for a while. You should be learned already when it comes to doing things that cost Mr. Silver to reach into your pocket and take money that you could give to the Foxhole or SJ gets down so we could go buy some more cool gear as opposed to giving it to Commissioner Silver for being stupid. That's just me. I'm sure I ain't the only one that feels that way. Yeah. At this point, it's just ridiculous. I mean, I think about when he was in Oregon, I would have never thought he would become. It would be one thing if he was an enforcer thug, but this is just more clownish shit at this point, don't you think? Okay. Cooper Flag drops 40 as the Mavericks lose to the Jazz Monday night in OT. A great question was posed this week on the TV shows. Are we going to remember this game as a start of something? Or is this this is just like, not an anomaly, but hey, anybody in this league where people don't play defense can have a night of 40? Well, I think the latter is a much cynical take that probably, let's not be so harsh. And let's maybe look at this in a positive sense that, this is probably something special as far as this kid and his maturation. He's only 18. I mean, who at 18 is dropping 40 in an NBA game? Right? So I'm looking forward to seeing what this young man does over the next couple of years, as I'm sure a lot of us are. And I think he's not going to be a bust, and he is going to be a force to be reckoned with. Just going to be curious to see what kind of team they put together in Dallas. When you actually have a Kyrie and AD healthy for more than 45 seconds. Okay. You had the Nuggets and the Rockets that were on Monday night. Props to Peacock for providing that game because we know the NBA wets its pants whenever the NFL is on. Oh no, there can be no games that can be found. But props to Peacock for these Monday night games. Got to have a Peacock subscription, mind you, but if you have one, you had a hell of a game with that. Rockets and Nuggets, a potential Western Conference final. And aside from Houston's coach whining about the calls, this was pretty much box office stuff and what we really want to see. And I spoke to this on Aftershocks 20 about either of those teams wanting to make the trade for Giannis, and I don't think either one should, based on watching that game. And now, hey, maybe Oklahoma City, isn't going to go, 81-1 and sweep the playoffs. Okay. So I talked on Aftershocks about the whole royalty at Camp USA for the ladies and all the harmony and all the kumbaya. Didn't realize, Miss Sabrina wasn't there because she's going to have a Leo baby. Congratulations to her, man. And look, he plays for the Jags. Only thing that sucks is they got robbed. They're out of town. And as usual, people with their sleuthing, oh yeah, she's got some gear. I think they took like $60K of handbags and other gear. Fucking douchebags. Oh man. And so, okay, this just came across the board. So once again, a lot of stuff today just coming across the board I haven't had a chance to unpack. So,
how likely is it that the WNBA...
So the WNBPA, the Players Association for the ladies, voted today that they've overwhelmingly authorized to call a strike when necessary if the negotiations between them and the WNBA don't get them what they want. In other words, you got to pay us what we are owed. So, okay. This is getting very interesting. I still believe they see the writing on the wall, but who knows? Because as I've been saying for weeks, the troublemakers have been muzzled. But this may just be a formality to say, hey, you know what? If we got to throw down, we're going to throw down. Or it could also say, yeah, this shit ain't going anywhere. Stay tuned, folks. Who knows which way this ball is going to spin? Okay, when we return, where are we going? We're going to do some Nightfall of Diamonds. See you in a few seconds. Right then, welcome back to the Foxhole. Your faithful host Ken Harlan here on a terrific Thursday, talking the weekend sports and other things. So, not quite the Nightfall of Diamonds yet, as I said at the end of the last segment. It's actually time for the beautiful game life. As we start to wind down the year and leagues take some time off, as you'll see people wrapping up fixtures, although there's cup competitions and other things to happen, plus, the EPL with its legendary Boxing Day and New Year's Day or New Year's Eve matches and stuff. So plenty of football proper to enjoy as we enter the holiday interlude. Yeah, I spoke yesterday about the whole thing with Sporting Cascades. Not yesterday, but the day before. I finally commented on that. Still no clear response from the club. Like I said, man, no pyro, no party in Eugene in 2026. Very sad. hopefully we get some clarity as far as what's going to happen with Sporting Cascades Football Club. Sure, it'd be a shame if our dreams get quashed in that regard. But we're going to be positive for now until we hear otherwise. All right. What do we got here? So we had some awards to dish out. So, obviously the Ballon d'Or is all of its, glory and controversy with the fanboys, which I spoke to in Aftershocks earlier in the week. But let's see here. Big surprise here. Luis Enrique, named FIFA's Coach of the Year. Gee, I wonder why. Ousmane Dembele, the Ballon d'Or winner. Awesome named Player of the Year. Big surprise. Gigi Donnarumma, formerly at PSG, now at Man City. Goalkeeper of the Year. Wonder why. Big surprise. Itana Beaumonte wins the Women's Player of the Year. Badass she is from Spain. Big surprise. So there you go. FIFA gives out its awards. No shock there. I mean, Dembele, you can make all kinds of conversations about in terms of whether he should have won that or the Ballon d'Or. Fine. I let the fanboys talk about that till they're blue in the face. It is what it is. Speaking of Dembele's current club, the star that departed the club and is considered to be, one of the top 5 players in the world, Kylian Mbappe, or MPayPal as his detractors call him, he got a victory this week as the court rules in his favor, and PSG will need to fork over $70 million in unpaid wages to the former PSG star. Well, as a PSG fan, what do I think about that? I'm like, fine, they can afford it. Get this bullshit over with. He happy in Madrid, we're winning without him. Put this Mbappe thing in the rearview mirror. Give him his money so he can STFU. We can go on winning trophies without him. He can do whatever he wants trying to get Real Madrid back to glory. Simple as that. That's how I feel. Okay. Speaking of Mbappe's former club, PSG in a major match yesterday, FIFA's Intercontinental Cup, facing Flamengo of Brazil, and what a match it was. A match for the ages, really. Unless you were a fan of both of these teams. If you're a fan of either one of these teams, you had an ulcer. It was a very rough experience. PSG, with its long year, still really trying to get into form with people injured. Because it's a long year with them having to deal with the World Cup and stuff like that. So they haven't really hit their stride yet. And this is another one of these tough affairs. Every time you play one of these South American squads, I can't say enough about their quality. This thing went into extra time, weren't able to get a goal, and it comes down to penalties. And Mr. Savanoff, who was in for the injured Savalier, who replaced the aforementioned Mr. Donnarumma, who's now at City, had one of the more epic performances you're going to see as he turned back 4 penalty kicks. Not 1, not 2, but 4. And PSG wins its 6th trophy of the year, joining Man City, not Man City, but Bayern Munich and Barcelona as that distinction. Could have been 7. Can you imagine if they'd won the Club World Cup? How insufferable us PSG fans would be. But nonetheless, winning 6 major trophies in a calendar year is an impressive feat for the Red and Blues. Props to y'all. Okay. What else is happening around the horn? So how about Red Bull New York hiring Michael Bradley? The Bradley coaching legacy continues. Obviously, Michael, son of legendary Bob Bradley, LAFC's first coach and coach of the U.S. national team and many other different teams in his illustrious career. His son great career in Toronto, among other places. Cool that he's getting a shot. I know people will say, "Oh, come on, man. Why are you applauding this? Since you're always crumbing on Nepo babies." I don't always crumb on Nepo babies. I only crumb on Nepo babies that get overhyped and have cults that are built around them. And I've said many times, that's the whole Nepo baby has got all sorts of success stories as far as the NFL is concerned. And so I'm willing to see what happens here. Because when you grow up in this profession or any sporting profession, you have certain insights that most of us will never have. And so we'll see what he can do to build on what Daddy has imparted to him. Interesting times. And that's that for high profile gig, Red Bull New York, looking to really up its game, especially now that we're getting closer and closer to New York City Football Club getting its crib over in Queens in that entertainment district. Gotta up your game. Okay. How about Wilfred Nancy? Yeah, that Wilfred Nancy, formerly of the Columbus Crew, going over to Celtic. Ooh, it has not gone so well for him. First 4 matches have all been losses, including one in the Scottish Cup to St. Mirren. Hey, the grass isn't always greener. Especially going over to Europe and trying to take your style of ball to a very historic club. Hey, nobody's wishing for Wilford to slip on a banana peel here. But right now, it just ain't looking good. Just saying. Okay. Take a quick whip around the leagues. EPL. Chelsea, Liverpool, and Arsenal all posted wins on Saturday. Over in La Liga, Barcelona, they got Osasuna 2-0. I saw Real Madrid won their cup game yesterday. I think Mbappe had 2 goals or some shit like that. Pardon my language. Over in France, the aforementioned PSG got a big win. They stayed close to RC Lens. Looking forward to, I think when we come out of the winter break, they got the first ever Paris Derby with Paris FC, so that's going to be pretty exciting. Okay, what else do we have? How about this one? Some big signings or re-signings over in the NWSL. Sophia Wilson. Not Sophia Smith now, because all these girls have taken on their married names, like Lindsay Hapes. Now it's Sophia Wilson. She takes the $1 million option to remain with the Portland Thorns. And at the same time, goalkeeper Casey Murphy signs a $1.5 million deal with the Boston Legacy. So while they're trying to come up with weird cap rules to prevent the whole thing with Trinity Rodman, people are signing some very lucrative contracts in the NWSL. Something to definitely keep our eyes on. Okay, folks, when we return on the other side this time, we will have some Nightfall of Diamonds. See you there momentarily. Alrighty, welcome back to the Foxhole. Your faithful host, Kid Harlan here. Ice cold chilling on a terrific Thursday afternoon. Well, it's wet, but it's still terrific. Okay, let's do the Nightfall of Diamonds, shall we? Let's start off on the hippie bus, or sort of. Oh, an RIP, somber farewell to the legendary Joe Ely. Passed away at 78 this week. more known in the alt country circles for a long time. I know I came across him because he had a long-standing friendship with The Clash, one of my favorite groups, and a lot of people's favorite groups. And that's how I know about Joe Ely. And also kind of known the influence that he has as far as Southwest music in that same tradition. Buddy Holly, because I think he's from Lubbock as well and whatnot. But anyways, yeah, the music world lost, a gem. Maybe not known to a lot of folks, but a lot of times that's the way it is when you have so many talented, wonderful people giving us joy with their music and their art. Okay. Our condolences go out to his people, fans. Another farewell, I guess. I mean, well, this is one of those in the department of finally acknowledging what we already knew. So all the folks in Jane's Addiction put out a statement basically saying, yeah, what happened at the end of that tour was pretty fucked up. And Perry, we shouldn't have said that Perry is a mental case and all that other stuff, but yeah, we threw thank you. And they leave an interesting legacy. I remember at one time people used to call, when I was seeing them, because they're going to see Sun and their connection with the 818, which is huge. I remember going to see shows with a friend of the show, Mr. Big, and people would say, hey, this is like the alternative, this is like the alt Grateful Dead at the time. Yeah, how that went. Still, going to shows, especially in LA at that time, it was one hell of a party that I can definitely admit somewhat to being a part of. Oh, gee whiz. All right. This is also going to be cool. The holiday shows are coming up. I think we've got some biscuits tonight and tomorrow on Couch Tour. So I'm really excited about that. Along with some NBA tonight. It'll be a good evening. But how about Phil's kid Grant? Guess he's got his band now. What, the Terrapin Family Band has kind of morphed into Graham Lesh and Friends now. Or maybe I have that wrong. But they're going to honor their dad. The big celebration at the Cap. Over there, right? New York, that Capitol Theater. On Phil's birthday, the Ides of March. That's very cool. Looking forward to that. Hopefully, it'll be streamed on Nugs. Anything to, honor that wonderful man. All right, that's the Dark Star Crashes view of the hippie bus, as we always do to start off our baseball segment, because we can. And now that we're talking baseball, first of all, a correction from one of our listeners, a good trading partner of mine as far as the hippie world is concerned, my man, Mr. Eric H., who had to point out to me that Mr. Yastrzemski is the grandson, not the son of the great Yaz. That's like, yeah, duh. But right, it's some of those things that you just never make that mental connection. Yeah, his son, which, no, it's his grandson, Ken. So props for pointing that out, because I would have never thought for half a second otherwise. See? Love when our listeners engage. Drop me a line anytime, FTINFX@gmail.com, or call the hotline, 541-525-0896. Yeah. Okay. Well, let's see here. What do we got going this week as far as baseball? Adolis Garcia lands in Philadelphia at 35. Can he be the difference? Well, shit. If he gets back to his 22 or 23 form, hell yeah. Phillies still scare me as far as being a Dodger fan out west is concerned. Yeah, I think that's a good sighting. Time will tell otherwise. Doesn't nothing prevailed there, right, kid? Speaking of LA, a lot going on there. Gee, what a surprise. Well, I talked about this on Aftershocks the other day. The whole notion of Tarek Skubal possibly joining the Dodgers. Well, there's no Skubal in LA yet. This we know. But we also know this, that he is going to be on Team USA for the World Baseball Classic. The Foxhole says, hell yeah, bring your ass to the party. We're going to need all the ammo we need, taking on, a certain someone in his compadres. Just saying. So, speaking of the Dodgers, it just was listed. Their winning share for this year's World Series is about $485,000. So a little bit short of $500,000. Not bad to go along with that fat ring and the legacy that goes along with it. Fair to say? And people say, oh, wow, gee whiz, everybody wants to play on the Dodgers. And speaking of those Dodgers, what is it? They also listed this week that they have, at this point in time, mind you, I'm sure this is going to obviously go up astronomically down the road, or, relatively so. They have like $1 billion at this point in deferred obligations. To this date, mind you. I know people are like, well, how are they going to generate that money? Dude, they're already generating that money. That's why I'm sitting there going, $1 billion. Yeah, that's a lot. But A, the owners have got deep pockets. B, they are a global brand, and they are exploiting it to the max and to the hilt. So, yeah, I think the system they have, at least right now, looks pretty sustainable. Come back and talk about this in 2 or 3 years and see where we're at as far as that goes. But hey, I'm not, I didn't go to Wharton, so maybe you know something else that I don't know. I was watching one of these podcasts this week because I like to watch all sorts of podcasts, only to get tips on how I can improve mine and just seeing what they do, basically, just from a production and quality standpoint. Content-wise, I can take or leave it. Just as you can take or leave the content that I provide. That's just the way it goes in the pod stream, I think. What the hell do I know anyway? But a question came out, and one of them was, what is your strategy for taking down the Dodgers if you're a baseball owner? I'm like, well, shit. It's pretty simple, isn't it? Quit being cheap. Now, LA, as I was talking about with SC earlier, there's a lot to like about the City of Angels right now. Especially if you're holding. You know what I mean? If you're one of those, I got my big bag. Yeah, there's a lot to be desired. Obviously there's earthquakes and fires and floods and that kind of stuff that might, put a damper on your day. But besides that, it's in the 80s right now. So you're going to have to offer some really big bags of cash if you're Toronto, if you're Milwaukee, if you're Philadelphia, even San Francisco, compared to what's going on in LA. We know when you've got Hal Steinbrenner walking around, what did Junior Soprano used to say? To cry the blues while you have 2 Virginia hams in each arm. And, whatever the hell is going on with Mr. Cohen and Queens. There are people out there, and I admit, it's a tougher sell for folks, and I don't know how you convince any of these high-profile talents, unless you offer a crippling deal, which means you better have a damn good farm system to make up for it if you're giving somebody a 10-year, $500 million, deal. And I've noticed a lot of these deals that were inked recently, it's more of like half of that. It's like, well, let's do 3 years, 150 and see how we are, see where the market is. And maybe that's where you go and you convince the agent and the player, like, well, hey, maybe you want to be the one that lifts us to a possible championship and, become a ledge that way. Because I'm sure there are certain people that, look at some of these flagship franchises and go, well, hey, how do I make my brand away from that? It's like I'm only adding to this, perhaps. Or what do I have to do to even become legendary at this point? I mean, good grief. Look at the Dodgers or even the Yankees for that matter. And, at this point, it's like, well, you have such a rich history. So, yeah, I mean, I know that was kind of a ramble. But the truth is, spend the cash, yo. And, speaking of, I just think about, I saw this article. They were talking about the Angels. This is down the 5, into the orange curtain. And how they haven't made the playoffs since like 2014. I think that's like the longest drought in all of MLB, for one. Which is, sidebar there is, okay, folks are talking about MLB being dead. If their drought's only 11 years, that's pretty good. Because like the Dolphins, that's what, 2,000? In terms of teams being good enough every now and then to keep their fans believing a little bit. Shit. I don't even know where I was going now. They got off on that side street. But yeah, I'm talking about the Angels. And you just sit there and wonder about them, especially with that juggernaut down the road. And as I've mentioned before, that solid team they've got in the south direction in San Diego. What the hell are they going to do to be relevant? I mean, how do they enter the conversation? In a weird way, man, I guess it's not fair to call them the Clippers of MLB because they actually have won something. It might have been 2002, but still, it was in this century. So I can't really say they're the Clippers of MLB, but it's just kind of looking that way. Oh, man. Yeah. Where are we here? See, the mouse is not working. Lastly, another great article I saw. Yeah, I was actually reading somewhat this week. I think it was one of the Bay Area publications. And by the way, rest in peace, Austin to Glenn Dickey, beloved sports writer, as far as the glory years of the A's and the Raiders, Giants, 49ers, obviously. Passed away, I think, 89 today. Condolences go out to his people as well. But there was an article that asked, who's worse in terms of as an owner doing harm to not only the East Bay, but which is a question into itself. And in the end, when it comes to running their teams into the ground, and it's Mr. Fisher or our man, Mr. Davis. Both owners of teams who departed the East Bay for Las Vegas or soon to be Las Vegas. I thought, damn, that is a hell of a question. For my money, I gotta go with Mark Davis right now. Fisher's bad, but I think Mark Davis, he takes the cake in terms of how putrid the Raiders are. Whereas I really could see the A's being interesting once they land in Las Vegas, where the Raiders have been in Vegas for a while, and obviously he's living the life, of the Luxembourgs, but the product, I mean, it's poo. Unwatchable. So right now, yeah, I would say I would take Mark Davis over John Fisher, and that's saying a lot. All right, peeps. When we return, we'll do a closer look. All righty, welcome back to the Foxhole. Your faithful host, Ken Harlan here. Ice cold chillin' on a terrific Thursday. Waiting for some Thursday night football as the NFL winds its season down. The college football playoff starts tomorrow. How exciting that is. Great time of the year, obviously the holidays, families getting together. People be safe on your travels. Get all your shopping done so you can sit back and enjoy the adult beverages and the good food and company and all the fun stuff that comes along with this time of the year. Yeah. Okay, time to opinionate, editorialize, talk a little trash, closer luck. You know, I talked about some of this on Aftershocks the other day, and I can't get past it, so we're revisiting a little more of this whole sabotaging Sanders and why the Colt needs to STFU and just watch the damn games. I just thought stuff I've heard the last 2 days. So I did the Aftershocks on Tuesday. I know I talked about this then. You know, this whole idea that people are sabotaging this kid and the moving of the goalpost, where it's like, well, you know, if he'd gotten the reps, you know, he was getting first team reps. Well, there's never any like, well, gee, were you like the first guy in the building and last guy in the building? Kind of do like Brady asking, you know, the second or third team receiver, hey, stay afterwards to run routes and building that little chemistry sort of thing. You hearing anything about that kind of stuff? Or people suggesting that? Of course not, because it doesn't fit any narrative where people can play the victim. And trying to make this kid a victim, this Nepo baby a victim, is one of the more mind-blowing things I've seen. And 2025 has been pretty hair-raising for things that somebody make it make sense. Yeah, I can't blame the kid. You know, you should have known this. You know, I know when people start to say, you know, we are afraid of a brother that speaks his mind and he's going to show all of us how we've been mistreated and he's going to rise above it. People, he was getting $4 million in NIL money when he was in Boulder. So this idea of being oppressed or even being slighted because he fell to the 5th round, and that's probably a lot of him and his daddy's doing. You know, you can't, at some level, hate the player and let the game go unscathed. Say, don't hate the player, hate the game. Well, I don't want to hate the game, but the game did sort of cause this sort of nonsense. Now, it's true. From what we've seen, he probably should have gone in front of Dylan Gabriel. Maybe. I mean, they both have flaws. But he's not a 5th round draft pick. That I can see from the eye test. Now, that guy who was filling in Minnesota before J.J. McCarthy, that's a 5th round draft pick. Yes, we know there's Tom Brady's and Brock Purdy's, where you find that gem that ends up being an NFL ledge. Johnny Unitas, on and on and on. But for the most part, yeah, when it comes to 5th round draft picks as far as QBs go, we get that as far as this kid goes. But I just thought it was so interesting and a very bad performance. People were saying, wow, man, you guys were waiting for that moment. You know, you're all going to see this was just one bad day. Kind of like when Danny said after the Buffaloes, which Shador was coaching at the time. Oh, you better get us now. This is the worst you're going to see of us. Oh, yeah. And since that point, yeah, there's been some high moments, but there's been a lot of lows as far as that Buffaloes program goes. I don't want to sit in here and be like Jason Whitlock, right? Where I'm sitting there crumbing on this shit just for clicks or because my disdain causes me to probably fixate on it more than I probably should. I'm just saying, man, this cult surrounding this kid just, I don't know. It's mystifying, to say the least. But nonetheless, it is good TV. My only complaint, really, when you're watching the Red Zone, because they think it's marquee, oh well, we're not going to show any of his game because that's a marquee game. I'm like, it's a 2-11 team. I get maybe you don't want to show that, but it's kind of like, well, you guys care so much, you should let us see some of his drives so we can make the comments as opposed to getting the blow by blow on X or AKA Twitter as far as what's happening. That's just my only complaint. Okay. This is another thing I find interesting to comment on this week in a closer look. The Emirates Cup. Isn't it interesting how this cup really, now in its third iteration, it's come to distinguish the true generation gap that exists as far as Gen Z, millennials, alpha, whatever the hell, versus, the boomers and Xers and Ys and whatnot. Yeah. Because everything from, God, this tournament is so boring, it's a marketing thing, and it's just something to get us engaged, which all may be true. But having this thing as, you see a Wimbyama, and you see some of the other folks who have gotten into this, and I can't wait to talk to Mr. Ford later on Aftershocks about this, as he was at the game the other night. But I'm hearing all these people they're so negative. I mean, even the discussion whether to hang a banner or not. Like hanging a banner, especially in the case of the Knicks, diminishes. We're above that. You haven't won shit since 1973. You're not above anything at this point. I mean, hell, if you could put a banner up there for how many times Taylor Swift has played MSG or Fish or the Grateful Dead, people, get off the high horse and stop taking yourself so damn seriously. And I think watching all three iterations, how competitive it gets to a point, when you get to the rounds that matter, it's pretty intense. And as they will point out to you, for the two-way players and, the folks at the end of the bench, it's like, man, I'm going to make more ends in this thing than my contract for this year. Walking away, with cold cash. So there is something definitely new and cool about this tournament. As I said, the tournament we didn't think we needed, but ended up liking once we sat down and gave it a chance. But yeah, there to me seems to be this generational gap of people embracing it and folks who are like, oh no, this is just an orange slice participation trophy kind of tournament. And we're just trying to appeal because soccer is so popular with the young, maybe this is something we can make a connection of. Well, gee, have you ever thought maybe because it is successful in soccer and around the world, which, get over your American exceptionalism, these leagues are trying to go global and make the product attractive to those audiences. You didn't think about that. You just looked more about, oh, this is a participation trophy orange slice kind of thing. Oh, boomers, you kill me. I mean, I'm a boomer, obviously, but still. Oh my goodness, I don't act like one when it comes to things like this. But I can let go. But apparently, some folks that are luckily to be around, they aren't having this, and they really feel the whole thing was a waste of time. Especially because, oh my goodness, I have to have a Prime account, one more streaming thing, which it's a streaming world, whether you like it or not. And don't hate on the Amazons and Netflix who said, you know what, we're gonna get in on this deal, and we got money to spend, and the leagues obviously are willing to take our money to broadcast their product. It is what it is, right? Okay, folks. I could ramble about stuff like this ad nauseum, and we still got some aftershocks coming later, so we'll save some of that ammo. When we return, we will do the NFL report, some TMCA time to close things out for episode 293. Alrighty, working out a glitch there. Yeah, trying some different things here as far as music we use in the podcast. We always try to change it up from season to season. But when you use your presets as opposed to things you have in your folders on your computer and syncing it up with VLC and blah, 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 yeah. You get a little hiccup like just then. Okay, then. Tech talk you probably didn't need to hear, but there you go. Okay, let's do some NFL report. Where are we at here? See, we talked a lot on Aftershocks 20 about the tumultuous week. You know, obviously, Mahomes and Micah Parsons going down in a heap and being lost for the season and the impact it's going to have on the league. Two of its biggest stars not there for the stretch run, let alone Chiefs Kingdom not being a part of the upcoming playoffs. Yeah, I know it's crazy. They say the timetable for Mahomes is about 9 months, which would put it sometime mid-September, which means he wouldn't start the season. But as I said many times already, especially the other day, he's one of these guys that's really not happy how this season went and going to be even more pissed if someone like Lamar or Bo Nix gets all the flowers and people say he's washed. Yeah, the guy's a true champion and he's about to bust his ass off. My money is that he is going to be there week one, like I said the other day. Definitely. Still trying to figure out, what about Joey Cool, if his sulliness, if that's a sign like, yo, bitches, it's time to get me out of here. Some folks were floating like, hey, is he gonna like shock folks and walk away from the game and pull an Andrew Luck? And I'm thinking, I thought about it for a second, like, yeah, I can see him being cranky. Cincinnati will do that to you. I'm like, this guy's not thinking about retiring. He's more looking around the room, just like saying, it's time to go, man. I know if I'm in the right situation. So you got to think he sees someone like a Sam Darnold and the success he's had in Minnesota and now Seattle. It's like, I'm better than that fool. Put me in a situation where we're built. Hell, I made it to a Super Bowl in spite of the madhouse that Cincinnati is. Okay. You know, the 49ers, they put Brandon Ayuk on the shelf for the season. Makes sense. Obviously, they don't want to get him hurt, bringing him back. They don't want to bring whatever is going on between him, Kyle, and Lynch and all, whatever the case may be, into that locker room when shit, they're poised. They could be hoisting the Lombardi Trophy if we're not careful. Makes sense. I just wonder if he's gonna get let go, and you're the Commanders. Do you cut bait with Debo and make a run at this guy? I think it'd be a major risk, but at some point, thinking, well, I knew, what was that? Before, when Jaden's first training camp, and Ayuk was posting pictures from this, like, dude, he likes playing with this guy. They've got a long history together, obviously going back to college and whatnot. So I would think if you're the Commanders and you've got Noah Brown who can't stay on the field for more than 30 seconds, you might want to right? You might want to find somebody to complement Terry. You got Terry locked up for a little bit, and shit, Terry can still play. Terry's still balling. But yeah, if I were the Commanders, I would definitely, if he checks out health-wise, attitude, that could be a problem, but I'd be willing to see if you can work with it, especially if he's with his homie. And his homie says, yo, you're over here, you can't be acting a fool. Okay. Other takeaways, the Rams winning in Inglewood. But is it me, or is the Rams at home every friggin' week? Same with the Chargers. I mean, I know Rams played in Carolina, but it's like every time I turn around, they're at home, it feels like. The Lions, I hate to say I told you so, but I told you so. It was bound to happen at some point. Yeah, they still got a puncher's chance. Some things can happen. But we really don't believe they can get over the hump just from the eye test. It's been a heck of a run. Now they're going to have to figure out what they do to not perpetually be where they are right now, where it's cool when you've been more bun like the Lions have been in the past. But now that you've got the idea that, hey, why not us? And it's not us. You get the point. The Commanders and Giants, what a true Bay of Pigs affair that was. Good for Marcus Mariota. Good for the Commanders to end their, 8-game losing streak. Not so good if you wanted them to get a better draft pick. On the other side of the equation, Jackson Dart going into the blue tent again. You don't like to see that. Giants in the position. Do they maybe trade Dart and go for the more sturdier Mr. Mendoza? Interesting questions definitely loom in the offseason as far as that is concerned. The Bills spoil Drake May's coronation party. 1 second here, we have to adjust. Okay. Had to make sure the package, it's raining, it's wet out there, so there's a package out there. Didn't want to get it all soggy while I was sitting here talking, so I took a quick break. But let me go back to where I was at, about the Bills spoiling Drake May's coronation party. Because I talked about Josh Allen, his heroic effort on Aftershocks area, but now it's more about the Patriots and where do they go from here. It was kind of interesting, we were getting ready to call Drake May Brady Jr. There ain't no Brady 2.0. You have that kind of success, you better get some rings before we even think about saying something stupid like that. But that said, You got to give the Bills credit. And McDermott, their defense, very maligned at times. Drake May looked very ordinary in a way that Bo Nix hasn't. And I think Bo Nix's moment's going to come as well when it comes to these young quarterbacks when somebody decides to actually scheme their ass. And that's what you saw in the second half. And, Josh Allen, being Josh Allen, especially maybe that internal wisdom clicked in. It's like, the Chiefs are done, man. It's now or never for me. I got to rise above starting right this effing second. Wow. So this whole thing with the Steelers, everybody giving Aaron Rodgers all this love and saying, well, he's not doing so bad. He's not. All the Tomlin haters. Tomlin doing what he does. Ensuring if he wants to come back, in spite of all you people that would like to see him go somewhere else, probably, man, we cool. Right now, I'd rather see that Steeler team than the Ravens with Lamar looking like 99-cent store Lamar right now. And their defense lost in the forest somewhere. Yeah? So, what it really comes down to it for me, on the other side of the ball in that game, the Dolphins, as you probably have heard by now, Tua Tagovailoa has been sent to the bench for Quinn Evers, which is crazy because that, in effect, basically means the Tua era in Miami has come to an end. Because after all, unless, Mike McDaniel is going to get blown out of the door, which right now I don't know what Mr. Ross is thinking as far as that goes. And maybe they blow the whole vessel up and start from scratch. I was saying earlier, they haven't made the postseason since 2000. And some of us who are astute in that department know they never have gotten off the campus from the Sea of Hands in 1974. It's been nightmare after nightmare, even when they were good enough to contend for a title, as far as the Finns are concerned. In this latest chapter, which is fair to say that you've ridden Tua's horse as far as you could go, and right now, this ain't it. Kind of like with Arizona and Kyler Murray. Like, you're all right, but we ain't done shit with you driving the bus. And at some point, how much mediocrity are we going to live with? Right? Oh, it's kind of funny. One more question, though. Do you think McDaniel gets another chance from Mr. Ross? I think he does. Unless there's some badass candidate from the college ranks or a coordinator you can't live without. But since you missed that on the Ben Johnson alert, and do you really want to bring Robert Saleh down there without taking one of Kyle's high-flying coordinators to run the offense? Just saying. Okay. Back to Aaron Rodgers. Do we owe him an apology? Not really. I've always known he could go out and game manage, even in his 40s, and kind of, do what Phillip Rivers is being asked to do. We saw Brady at 44 with a piano on his back. Oh, you know how to play the game. You can move an offense. Nobody's questioning that. The Jets just suck. So I don't think we owe them an apology. I am impressed that the Steeler team that looked pretty rudderless, they're holding their own down the stretch. And I do like watching him be the true field general out there, being a leader of men. So sure, do I know an apology? Nah. I think it's funny over in New York his former team. They kind of closed the loop. You know, when he came over there, wanted to bring his people, obviously Devontae and also Mr. Lazard. Jets cut Lazard basically to close the loop on the Aaron Rodgers era. Whatever you're closing the loop on, is it enough or enough time for you, Mr. Aaron Glenn, to save your job? Yeah. Okay. Well, we're at that time of the week where the trucks from the foundry, even in the wind and rain, have arrived up to Eagle's Nest 2, containing those stainless steel bowls that come in complimentary regular and XL sizes of the smelliest varieties. You got it. It is TMCA time in the Foxhole. Our weekly look at those whose actions during the week earn that distinction, or if we like to say, them being who they be. TMCA time coming at you in the Foxhole to close episode 293 out. Well, we know there's going to be a two-strip to Diego Pavaya. F the voters with the pose. Your heart was in the right place, but your head obviously was near your boo-boo when you did that. So that's definitely two. Another week has passed, and I'm still not done handing Sharon Moore XLs. I got to give him another 3 for being that stupid. For having a kick-ass job you should never have had and peeing it away because you can't get your freak on. I may be giving you awards for weeks to come because the more I think about it, the more stupid it is, especially over getting your freak on. Please, man. Jeez, man. You could have got an AR fucking thing, and, you know, that could have... An AI thing, I should say. You could have an AI thing going. It would have been a hell of a lot cheaper. Let me tell you. Okay. I'm going to give 2 regulars to Jamel Hill for never letting go of the victimhood. Not only her comments about Sharon Moore, but when she was sitting there talking to Cam Newton, you know, when it comes to the opportunities like that a Brady or a Romo had that would never go to a black quarterback. And I think, man, there's black quarterbacks that are moving up in the ranks. Look at RG Me. And the fact that, well, she would have a point if she said, just given until recently, there hasn't been a lot of quarterbacks that were African American that were in a position to become announcers. There are now because, I don't know, 60-something% of the quarterbacks I believe now are. So as we move forward, now in terms of getting the top jobs, that's always been kind of reserved. I mean, people go, the Cowboys. I go, even Dandy Don, who never won anything, was on Monday Night Football. Yeah, Brady, obviously, with his pedigree, and the guy speaks well, his command of the English language, blah, 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 blah. We get all that. But I do feel there are going to be plenty of quarterbacks. Why a Warren Moon or a Randall Cunningham didn't ever get a call to become an analyst? Maybe they didn't want to. I don't know. As far as the folks who are like Jamel Hill, who like to push that angle. But it's just like, can you stop focusing on the victimhood? I know you said when you left ESPN, my whole cause is for my people. Fine, but you can cause for the people without always bringing up this petty stuff and bringing up these victim narratives when somebody gets a successful job or somebody loses their job for being an asshat. Whew. Okay. 3 XLs to the Bengals. One XL for screwing up Joey Cool's tenure. B, for being cheapskates, fully on display this past week, not shoveling the snow which NFL rules require you to. So fans have to shovel the snow out of their seats themselves and come up with some corny, lame-ass excuse. And 3, for just being a low-budget organization throughout the years. If you really had ambitions, think what you could have probably have done. And you have had pretty good. So I give you credit for having some smart football people, but running it like a mom and pop operation that squeezes the quarter so hard the eagle screams. Yeah, it's kind of speaks for itself, doesn't it? Whew. Okay. Now we're gonna go right. You know who's us in the Foxhole? We do not take sides politically. We are a proud independent. And so if I do make a comment about particular political figures, it's because I feel that they cross the line. And our president this week, in my opinion, crossed the line. So he's going to get 2 XLs. The comments he made following Rob Ryder and his wife's tragic death. Can't people just shut up? I felt the same way about people who were commenting unnecessarily after Charlie Kirk. It goes anyway can you just let people grieve? Comment what they may, but can you just shut the fuck up for once and not have to, say something that's, I don't know, lacking in class, decency, whatever the case may be. And this has nothing to do with political views or anything. It's just human decency in these moments. And in this particular case, it's just like, come on, man, especially a horrific event that had obvious tragic, outcomes in this case. So yeah, I'll just leave that alone. So, I'm going to give complimentaries all around and an XL for the Hall of Shame for all these theft rings, which our girl Sabrina Ionescu was a victim of the latest this week. I gotta give you, what am I going to say? These folks, you're sleuthing and you figure out where they live, figure out how to get past, sophisticated alarm systems or whatever the case may be. I don't know. Where are you selling this stuff? I mean, how are you doing it just because in your underground club you can go, yeah, man, check out. I got this dope ass Gucci bag that was Sabrina's or Coach bag that I'm giving to my lady. Of course, somebody's gonna probably recognize it if you're at the club. I don't know. I just had to throw that in there this week. Okay, so we're gonna give Puka Nakua and his bro both XLs. Puka for the whole anti-Semitic dance that he promised to do. Bro, why are you even going there, dude? You're a folk hero. Why? Especially down there? Come on, man. Man, I should give it to your handlers for not schooling you better as far as dumbass shit like that is concerned. Pardon my language, we're salty today. And his brother for stealing a SUV that belongs to somebody, I think who plays on the South Bay Lakers or whatnot. Bro, give your brother some ends so he ain't out there doing stupid shit like boosting cars. What the fuck? Pardon my language again. Woo-wee. Uh-huh. Okay. Okay, I'm going to give complimentaries to all the banner haters and a regular to the Knicks for trying to act like they have recent relevant history. Enough of that nonsense already. But congratulations for winning the Emirates Cup, though. Okay, folks, we have made it to the finish line. Hell yes, we have. Hell yes, we did. Okay. We'll do some aftershocks. I may do a live stream. Some other stuff coming. Check out my Facebook page for Foxtrotting in a Foxhole. Subscribe to the YouTube channel where all the content will be. Unless I post otherwise, I'll let you know where it will be. Big weekend of sports coming up here, so enjoy good food, drink, and company, and all the stuff that goes along with it. We'll see you in 6 to 8 days, probably earlier because of the holiday. All right, peace. We'll be catching up with you, as they say, soon enough. Oh my, there's one more thing I was going to bring up. It can probably wait. I'll give you guys a reprieve for now.